this language. I think it's a sort of a shameful aspect, shameful bit of our lives that we should be able to, well, do something about. We should always find ways, inshallah, of changing this situation. And some people have actually done that. Tonight, I think we'll get an opportunity to hear some of the children and how much of a difference it makes when they can actually speak in their languages. So, wherever you are, this is 10 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is Come. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. 10 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. That will be 10 minutes past 9 o'clock in Kigali, Rwanda. 10 minutes past 10 o'clock in Uganda. Well, the Bazukulu are already there, and actually the confusion has already begun. Many parents now have moved, have gone in for their holidays back home. The grandparents now are struggling to cope, well, sometimes not only with the English, but also with the accent. So they are not only having to contend with the fact that some of them don't speak English, but even those who speak English would have to contend with the accents, which they have to listen, probably ask 3, 4 different times. But maybe the problem is elsewhere. We have not taught our children our languages, our native languages from where we come from, our local languages from where we come from. As a result, these children now struggle when they get back home. Have you taken the chance probably to ask these children to go and negotiate, buy some maize on the streets, buy some, well, whatever is being sold, bananas, the yellow bananas on the streets? Have they been able to talk their way into a taxi? Or because as parents, we are always logged into vehicles, or we just bundle them into a car and you just take them everywhere you want to go. You don't give them a chance to sort of be able to immerse themselves into the community. My name is Kassim Kayira, and the program is Come. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. And this is your global community conversation. Tonight, we are talking about the problem of the Bazukulu who have come. In the studios, Ibra, if we can have that clip, please, that should get us ready. We just start with the Muzukulu, who is already with the granddad there in a place in Kasau, in Uganda, where, well, they just arrived about a week ago, and the struggle is real. Let's just listen to this conversation as we settle into our seats.
Oriachi? Mu Luganda?
Muogo.
Eh?
Muogo.
Kikaje muogo, eh? Gwobeera wa? Ova ludda wa kujja Uganda?
London.
Nka toli ludda wa?
Uganda.
Uganda ludda wa?
Kampala.
Kasau.
Kasau.
Mukyalo.
Kitonku.
Tonku.
Eh?
Kitonku.
Tonku.
Okay.
Tonku.
Kitonku ki?
Kasau.
Kasau.
Jajja no mubuuzi wamma. Jajja Haji.
Nkamanya gawo nkamanyi. My name. Imanyi? Nzani.
Jajja Haji.
Atiddala. Amanya gange. Nze Haji.
Kigozi.
Dauda. Waswa. Kigozi. Ani? Haji. Dauda.
Waswa.
Kigozi. Abeera Ekitonku. Kasau. District ya Mukono. Mukono district. Nyalo gwani. When you say Jajja Haji, you know what is your name? My name is Dauda Haji. Dauda Paswa Chikozi. Zazara.
Uganda
Well, barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, this is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and you just watched that first clip of someone that is familiar to us in the community, Isma, being already in the village back home in Kasau. And well, I'm impressed. He's managed to teach his children, well, a little bit of Luganda. There's a bit of a struggle, but you can see that at least there is a bit of knowledge. It's not coming out of the blue. It's quite well commendable. Many might not even have, well, that chance to be able to even get the children to speak. And but it starts from home. It's about the efforts that you put into that process. Just to update you on what is happening elsewhere in the world, in Kenya, our neighbor there, they've had their presidential general elections actually. So it's presidential, it's parliamentary, it's gubernatorial, and in these elections, so far results are coming in. So far, 49.68 for Raila Odinga, 48.72 for Mr. William Ruto, who has been the deputy president. Of course, those are the two main contenders. The other candidates are still quite low in 0.1%, and the other one is actually not even having been able to get to any percentage worthy of mentioning. The program tonight is about the children who have come back home. And the question we are trying to ask today, many times we struggle to get our children, well, once we go back home, the dilemma of having to get our grandparents to contend with the language barrier. A lot of times, as parents, we have to stay there to be translating for these children because they cannot speak the language. Unfortunately, this is something that is so common in mainly Uganda, in Kenya. In Tanzania, you'll find that that is not a problem because their Swahili is taught to the children almost straight away. But there are some as well who have ended up in the Western world and then totally forgotten. But there are other communities, people from Asia, Indians, Pakistanis, Bengalis, Nepalis, Chinese, Koreans, people who are very passionate about their languages and they make sure their children learn the languages. What has happened to us? Why has it been so difficult for us to be able to be a part of this particular situation? Well, is there something that we can do about that? You go to West Africa, for example, Ghanaians, but mainly Nigerians, very strong on their languages, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa. You'll find that especially these three main languages, their children almost always, at least have sort of knowledge, adequate knowledge of being able to do that. So tonight we're going to try to explore this and hear from you, participants, just in terms of what you have done. But there are also other people who are trying to do something. One of the ways, of course, is taking children back home and getting them to, well, customize themselves into the language. Once they immerse themselves into the language, it becomes a lot easier, a lot of times to be able to do that. So we have two special guests here. We've got Mrs. Khan, who will be, I think she's from Pakistan, who will be telling us, her own story. How do they manage to do it? What do they? And she will be staying, well, unless she decides to stay longer. But I've asked her specifically to come into the window just to give us an insight into how they've managed to be able to do it. And then the Nigerian as well, in terms of how they've been able to do it so efficiently. Are there lessons that we can take out of that that probably could help us enhance our own situation? Ibra in the studio, please, if we can have those clips on the efforts on pronunciation, which sometimes proves so difficult. If you can have those clips, please, just getting our people to come. Please invite your friends, let them come and join the conversation as we go on. Hear the dilemma that we are dealing with now.
Kabalagala. Okay. Kabalagala.
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 Okay. Good job.
No, but I still forget it.
Okay, let me start it. Okay. Again. Ka.
Ka.
Va.
Va.
Ba.
Ba.
La.
La.
Ga.
Ga.
La.
La.
Kaba. Okay, now I'm making it easier.
Too much.
I'm making it easier. Kaba.
Kaba.
Lagala.
Lagala.
There. Kaba.
Yes, Ibra, and the next one, please. and the next one, please. Some of these clips, I think we'll just need to replay them just to help those who will now have come in late just to get an idea of what is going on. But you can see the effort. Yes, the next clip still on that, please. I think it's the Mporogoma clip now. Okay, so so you just play them back to back once you finish this one plus the other one as well. Now, these are children who are in Uganda. Unfortunately, even people who are in the urban areas, they've just left the village, they come to the capital city or the big cities. Once they get there, they start, getting their children just speaking the language. By the time they go back to the village, they cannot cope. This is one of the examples. Yes, please.
Welcome back from the short break. My other question goes to Rona. Rona, are you ready for my question?
Yes.
What do they call a lion in Uganda?
Let me see. Empogomola.
What?
Yes.
Thanks for watching. That's all we have today. Bye-bye.
Yes, and the next one, Ibra. Ibra, if you have the other clip ready as well, please. I think there's another Porogoma mom with the daughter there. That's one.
No, Uganda.
Okay, stand up, friends. Jangu. Say, Nedira.
Nedila.
Mpologoma.
Apolomogwa.
Mpologoma.
Apolomogwa.
Mpo.
Umpo.
Lo.
Lo.
Goma.
Mogwa.
Mpologoma.
Bongoloma.
But do you know what you're saying, Pogoroma?
No.
Do you know what it means?
No.
Your totem is a lion.
What?
Yeah, so it's in Uganda it's called Mpologoma.
Okay.
So you say Mpologoma.
Apolomogwa. I said Apolomogwa.
Mpologoma.
Apolomogwa.
Gamba nedira Mpologoma.
Was I so close?
Mpologoma.
Apolomogwa.
David zekutadde bannange.
Apolomogwa.
Mpologoma.
Well, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, why don't we just get into the thick of the conversation? I think we've got your attention already. Someone is putting, well, the hand up. I think it's Mrs. Abdul, Miss Khan. I think we can actually start with you just in case you get busy and you get to leave. Before we delve into this, because I said we were getting some two special guests just to tell us, because you can see the struggle that is happening within our own communities, but how other communities have managed to do that. That would probably have been the second part of our program, but because we've managed to get Mrs. Khan Ali, please allow me just to bring her in. We hear how they've managed to do it, and then we can actually now continue with the conversation. We can bring our Nigerian brother pretty later in the program. Mrs. Khan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to your program. And it's really, I'm very happy that I have to share my experience and some of the tips with you all. So you can bring, your culture very close to your children.
So, Mrs. Khan, let's just start with your impressions. Having looked at the clips and the way we were laughing around that, what did you feel? How did that make you feel?
Exactly. Yeah. That's pronunciation, especially the children, they try to, we have been using those words since our childhood and since the beginning, and we are trying them, we are trying them to teach, and we are expecting that they should say just in a one go. No, it's not easy. And the tongue or the language or the way of communication that has adopted from British culture, from living in the UK, they have developed in this atmosphere, in this culture. So it's not easy for them to adapt the different dialect, different words, different vocabulary. It's not easy for them. And especially, English is in school, English is in nursery, English is in park, English is with the GP, English is with friends, English is with teachers. But native language or the mother language is only at home. is only with the relatives or the family members who come to you to visit you. But for me, language is a way to express yourself as well. So whatever, the country you live from, or you live in, or you come from, I think the language, mother tongue, it gives us a connection with our cultural heritage.
I think it also provides an advantage that if you wanted to backbite someone, there's no way you can backbite them in the language they understand. It'll be easier to just use the code.
Definitely. It's an interesting thing. Yeah, exactly. If you know, like if you visit your country and somebody is just pulling your leg in mother language and you don't know, your children don't know, they will let them do that. You know, and a very interesting thing that I would like to share with you. One of my friends, she was born and brought up here in Scotland. And her brother, he never got a chance to visit Pakistan very frequently. So he was totally Scottish. After the death of her parents, they had to visit Pakistan to sort out some property matters. And you know, some of the relatives or whatever who were looking after their property, they made the papers in the native language, and in Urdu, our national language is in Urdu. They signed the papers and everything went to those people. Why? Because they didn't understand, and they didn't bother to just to get the papers translated into English from Urdu. So they lost, just in one day they lost everything. So it is really, really important. Like, that's a very sweet case, but to enjoy with the grandparents, to enjoy with your uncles and aunts and your cousins back in your country, it is really important that you should share the language as well.
So how do you do it? Do you send these children back home, like for example, Pakistan, and they live with these people, or do you use the language at home? Because a lot of the dilemma that we have is in our work environment, we are using English. You come back home, it almost becomes an easy, natural way to even communicate with the children. Like you said, it is in the park, it is at the GP, it's in school, it's with friends. And therefore it becomes, as a parent, you might just get carried away and you just continue the same.
Yes, that's a very good question. Actually, it's not their fault. It's definitely, it comes to parents, because we are teaching them. In my home, we have banned, there's no way there's no way to speak in English at home. No, not at all.
Oh, really?
We don't speak in English with each other. Me and my husband, obviously, we speak in Urdu. That's our language. And my husband, he speaks Punjabi as well, because that's a provisional language. So he speaks that language. I do as well, but my provisional language is not really good. So my national language is very good. So yeah. And we, the baby talk, when you have a child, you start talking with your child. That's a bond and connection that you develop with your child. But I never use the English words. I always spoke my words, my own language. So but now, actually, I think that it's getting difficult for the parents from different countries to teach their mother language to the children, because we have given the gadgets, that's a small world in their hand most of the time. They spend most of their time not with the family, but with the gadgets, and the gadgets speak the language English.
Mrs. Khan, the way this program works is we talk with each other. It's a conversational aspect. It's not like we get one expert who comes in and just talks down to people. We get people engaged, and while you are speaking, someone actually heard what you said about the rule that you placed in your home, and they said that is Namato, who says, my mom gave this exact rule when we were growing up at home. Subhanallah, no English in the house. Salima, why don't we just bring you in and you speak to Mrs. Khan? It looks like there's a combination here. How did that help your Uganda learning?
Assalamu alaikum. For me, it was difficult. I've grown up here since I was in primary school. It was very, very difficult. Exactly as the ladies just said. You speak in English at school. In fact, when you've come in when you're young, you don't even know English as a language. You're having to learn it, which means you can't stop speaking it because you're learning it on a constant basis. And so you have a mom who's coming here and she's trying to instill these Ugandan values in you or to make you learn the language. So it was hard, definitely, at a point of where, you know, I couldn't speak because I was like, I'd forgotten Luganda at one point. So then I sort of like twist it, and instead of saying Jakulaba, I'd say Jalaba. However way for somebody to make you understand, just that little tiny, you know, whatever language of Luganda you were coming out of your mouth. But if I didn't know, I honestly didn't speak. My mom would say, she's an educated lady, alhamdulillah, but she'd say, I didn't speak English, and this is not a house of English. So, you know, speak to me in Luganda. And it was tough, but then I think also having, you know, I think for a couple of years, I definitely lost the language, definitely. But I brought it back. I have a lot of, you know, Ugandan friends that didn't grow up here like me. So, you know, they communicate to me mostly in Luganda. So I'm actually having forced to speak the language with them. They, of course, understand me, but it helped me as well with that. But yeah, definitely, when I resonated with that, definitely, my mom did say, no.
It played straight into that. Now,
Yeah.
Mrs. Khan, the issue with is, for example, the Pakistani community, for example, Asian community for that matter, you tend to be so much together. You live in same areas. So you'll find that, for example, if you get one Pakistani, one Bengali, you know that you're going to find another 3, 4. So you tend to stick together, which is different from the Ugandans. If one person can just go and end up in Swansea, another one is in London. They have not fought the war to try to get that one. So, which means in our own situation, it might not be as easier, you know, as it is, because Urdu, for example, is around you all the time. You can hear it from so many sources that it becomes easier to customize yourself to it. Which I think, Salima, am I right to say that, you know, within the Ugandan community, it's only now that people are beginning to...
Definitely. I mean, I grew up in northwest of London. I don't remember seeing, I can count by one hand, if there were any Ugandans in the area, not to speak of next door or down the road. We'd have to mostly travel to South London. Even then, it wasn't so much that there were relatives or there were friends of friends. You know, you come here, you build a community with the people that, you know, your mom's friends, etc., and their children, and that's how a community grows. So we'd have to travel to South London, for example, to meet these Ugandans, and we spend like 2-3 hours with them, and we go back home to where we're supposed to speak Luganda with 3 of us in the house. You see, so you know, it was like that. So it wasn't on a basis. But I think also my mom made sure that at the weekends, say for example on a Friday, we'd go to, you know, some of these friends' houses that would speak Luganda with these communities. So with that, alhamdulillah, I got that in that I was with Ugandans every weekend, whereas I know some people didn't get a chance to do that. So that's probably another reason.
Oh, fantastic. Mrs. Khan, you're talking about the use of body language to communicate.
Yeah.
Luganda might not be a very easy, expressive language with body language or movement.
Yeah, obviously. No, I understand that. But obviously, we start with the words before starting saying the complete sentence. We start with the words. So when your child starts saying just mama, baba, or whatever you say to mother or father, so you should, like, I used to, like, whenever I used to feed my baby with a baby spoon, I used to say like open your mouth in Urdu, but I was making my face as well, so he or she should know what does this mean, what I'm trying to say that. And when
you're holding the spoon in your hand,
yeah,
and you're also
and
saying,
I was saying I was saying like mukolo like mukolo
mukolo
so that was like, so like after 3 or 4 efforts, yeah, you will see an open mouth and spoon in, yeah, like that. And when gradually I started playing games, just like in the video clip that a grandfather was telling that my name is Daud, and how do you say that in your language? So I was saying that, okay, like my son's name is Abdul, he's the eldest one. Abdul, I'm telling you my name, you will tell your name. So I was saying my name, like Mera naam Tabinda hai, that's my name is Tabinda. So he will repeat that, Mera naam Abdul hai. So he will say a few words here and there, but he will try to say, and after 3 or 4 attempts, definitely he will get success. And we used to play the games like, okay, I will say in English, you will say in Urdu. I will check, I will test you, how many words you know. And we were like, I was teaching her colors, I was teaching her body parts, like eyes, nose, like what do you say these in Urdu. And Alhamdulillah, it's not like only my effort, it's the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he selected Urdu as a language in year 9, in year 8. And he developed so much interest in this language, and he said that I said him, Abdul, are you serious that you want to take Urdu as a subject to study? And he said that I want to study because when I go to Pakistan, I will read the newspaper for Nano, for grandmother. I will read the newspaper, and when she will tell me the stories, it will be easy for me to understand. So the childhood stories is really, really impressive, and it's very alluring to listen in the mother language rather than listening in English or like that. So you will definitely love when your mother, your mommy, or your father will be telling what you will be doing in your childhood to your children. That's really, really interesting. That's very loving moments that grandparents can share with. And one thing that, as you said, that community gap, you don't find as many people as we Asian communities have together. I think that this is the choice. Like, I know the area of Manchester where I live, or the area in London where I was living in past. The first priority from my husband was always that there should be a masjid or mosque around.
Yes.
I want to live there where the masjid is around. The second priority is that it should be somewhere where the halal grocery is available.
Yes.
So obviously these two things are really, really important for us. And we don't see, okay, like many people say, they have their priority, how posh is the area, how the clean and very nice and attractive area where you have to. So all these are the priorities or the
So,
choices.
Mrs. Khan, you see, I was just going to raise one point, and then I've just seen a message here. Stay on there. Let me just say, Maureen Nalunga, who's joining us from Sweden. Maureen, I think it's the first time you're joining the conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. But you're saying it depends on which country you are in. Here in Sweden, the community opposes us. They emphasize their language, and if we want our kids to be part of the society, then I think you have to take on the language. I'll come to you, Sheila. Maureen, I've just unmuted you. Let me just draw one line to Mrs. Khan. Mrs. Khan, I was just about to say that the fact that as a community, Asian, Pakistani, Bengali, you tend to live with the grandparents. So the likelihood that the grandparents will also have an influence also, I think, helps, doesn't it?
Sorry,
like you're living there, and maybe your mother or your father will come and be with you in the home. So while you might be away working, the grandparents can still continue to instill these linguistics, the linguistic aspects into the children.
Could you please repeat that? Sorry, there was some diversion. I couldn't hear it properly.
Oh no, my apologies. I think sometimes when I move, they tell me the mic just sort of.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was saying that does it help within your own community that you tend to live with grandparents? So you'll be living with your mother or your father or your husband's father, or your husband's mother, where for them to be in the home, the likelihood that they will influence the children with these little words that stick in the mind of the child will be there.
Yes. Not in our culture, but in your culture as well. When when I came here for literally for 3 years, I was unable to make some friends because that was Scotland. Very little Asian community that time, 20 years ago. Like Glasgow, that was an Asian part of Scotland. So I just I didn't have the smartphone. I had just the digital phone, and I know that every day, even for 2 or 3 minutes, apart from me and my husband, my child used to talk to his grandmother, like my mother or my husband's mother, and just the different voices. So he could get familiar with the different voices, with different tones, with different words. And normally grandparents, they call your name and how are you and these things in mother language. So that's the connection. Definitely grandparents, they share different stories. We normally start with the children, okay, when they are grown up, or have you eaten, have you done your homework, like have you done this, we just, our conversation is more than like it's a kind of, it's a series of instructions that we give them. But grandparents, they tell them the stories, they share the different things, and they put an everlasting influence on them.
Thank
I
you
strongly
very much.
agree.
Oh, fantastic. No, thank you very much, Mrs. Khan. Maureen in Sweden. Maureen, we are on to you now. The Swedish society tries to paint a picture of the superiority of their language and the inferiority of other languages. That can make it difficult for you as a parent to teach your children.
Yes, it makes really big impact. First of all, I would like to thank my sister Namatov. She's my sister. She's the one who connected me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, we share the same parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The issue here in Sweden is the same issue we had when we were in Uganda. Actually, in Uganda, most of us don't speak proper Luganda either, because in Luganda, they stopped us from speaking our language.
Oh, the beating in the schools with vernacular, yeah, and getting beaten up.
Yeah, putting you in the corner, putting a bone in your neck and so on. So we don't speak proper Luganda either from Uganda. And when we come here, we try. I just did like as our mom, Namatov told you that there was no English at home.
Yes.
I had that one also with my kids, at least a day or two. But when the kids went back to school, the teachers complained. Their Swedish is not that good. They started lagging behind. And being alone, Namatov comes here once in a while. Who will I speak Luganda with?
Yes.
So I had to give it up because I need my kids to have an identity, because when they go to Uganda, they are not Ugandans. When they are here, they are not Swedes because they can't speak proper Swedish. What do? I have to choose for my kids' sake.
So actually, why don't I just put the question to you? What do you do then in that situation?
What I did is that I had one day where we could speak Luganda, or where we could listen to Luganda music, or where we could make fun using Luganda, but it never became a thing. They understand, but they can't speak properly.
Yes.
But they can understand it, because if my sisters or my cousins or my dad was here on a visit, they could understand him, but they could not talk back. But it is there, they have it. But just to give them a proper stay in Sweden, I had to sidetrack. I had no alternative. I'm alone. Just like the sister we are talking about with the Udu. She has her mother-in-law, she has everybody there. Here I'm by myself, with my two kids. Who can help you?
Yes. No, that I think that can be quite a challenging one. And why don't we hear from the other people now? It might be that actually there are situations. But within Sweden itself, are you in Oslo or away from Oslo?
I'm in Stockholm.
No, that's no Norway. No, not sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, I'm in Stockholm.
You're in Stockholm.
Yes.
So that would be that. Well, part of it, I think Mrs. Khan here is saying we watch Urdu movies with English subtitles, and so they love it. So even they have learned Urdu songs by listening again and again, as I love my Urdu music songs. So that might be one way that while you are fighting a war that is so difficult to win, it might be that might be the way to get around that.
It could be,
like China, Uganda, or does it look so inferior? Because once someone gives you that situation, it feels like you are, like you just need to drop it so that you can fit in, for you to look, for you to look serious. You almost want to lose that.
There are so many things you could do. I'm a language teacher myself too. There are so many things you could do, but I myself don't know the language properly.
Yes.
If I'm going to read with them and they ask you, Mommy, what is that? You don't know how to explain it, because they put us in boarding schools where we're just speaking English. And we're not even speaking proper English. It was just the Uganda version of British English.
Yes.
So there were many times they were asking me, Mom, what is that? And I'm like, I can't speak it properly myself. Yeah. Despite
so actually,
that,
I think Maureen, you brought in something that had even eluded my mind as I was preparing this program, because the fact that even from home there's already that complex that has been painted. You're going to be punished for speaking. You are Uganda. It's vernacular. You're going to be beaten up, and because you're not speaking it at school, you start even despising it. Coming home and speaking it does not feel so much, especially when you can't have it in public. And the problem starts even at the very source. So while we are trying to find solutions abroad where you have to contend with a lot of challenges like you mentioned in Sweden, you're already defeated by the fact that coming from home, there's already that scenario that has been painted.
And most especially that language is the identity.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter even if I've lived here more than I lived in my country. My language is my identity. I'll never be a Swede. I just call a Swedish passport. So it pains me to see that my kids can't speak my language, but I was so happy when I had this. I'm looking for tips. What can I do? Now I have grandkids. How can I help the grandkids at least? I failed with my kids, but what about the grandkids?
All right. Thank you very much, Maureen. Now, one person that actually I envy so much, that's Maureen in Sweden. One person that I envy so much is Khalid, Sheikh Khalid in Manchester. He's one person, who has managed to, teach his children. You get to the house and there's just fluent Luganda flowing around. And it's just difficult actually not to feel, envious in one way or another because of the manner in which they've managed to do it. Sheikh Khalid, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And I can see the daughters. I can see our daughters there. Yes, you took it upon yourself now to take matters in your own hand and get teaching them Luganda. Actually, why don't we just hear them speaking for starters before I even come to you? Hi, girls. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Mugamba Mutia.
Jetudi.
David.
Kale nawe jebaliko.
Wali dekonda kamere.
Iye.
Sheikh Khalid, yes, I'm on to you and the daughters here. Luganda is just almost flawless, but you took a decision that maybe some of us don't necessarily take. Take us through your journey. How did you decide to get the children to be immersed in the Luganda?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It wasn't an easy journey, and even up to now, it's still a bit hard. But for starters, what I did was to send the girls back home for a couple of years.
Yes.
And
when you say couple of years, how many years were that?
It was about 4 years. I started with going with them for holidays, and then all of a sudden one day we had a plan with my wife, and we had thought about taking them back home so they can learn the language, learn how to live with other people without us, because you never know what the world has got for you. You don't know what tomorrow has for you. You might be here today and tomorrow you're not there. So, and I realized that most kids here tend to struggle when they've lost their parents, because they are not used to the life without their parents. So I was like, I think these kids need to know the other side of their families, both from my side and from their mom's side. We came up with that decision, but we were a bit worried about them, how to tell them that they are going to stay in Africa. Luckily enough, when we got there, they have a lot of space to play. They run up and down. They've got lots of relatives. And one day, just as the days were approaching for us to come back, Nadia was like, I don't want to go back. And we're like, why? And she goes, if I go back there, every time I want to play, to go outside to play, you will say no. So we're like, oh,
Yeah.
of course, we don't say no because we don't want them to go out to play.
Oh
But
yes.
even the weather,
Yeah. The
most of the
safety as
times the
well.
weather is
You
cold.
should.
It's and with them they don't understand. They might see the sun outside, but they don't know that the temperatures are very low.
Much low. Yes.
So when she said that she didn't want to come back, she wanted to stay. We're like, all right, that's a good beginning. So anyway, we went to start looking schools for them. Unfortunately, the school we wanted was Tawhid, which was really really hard to get admitted there because they normally do their interviews I think around November time,
Yeah.
and this was around January February.
Hmm.
Luckily enough, one of my best friends went with Nadia at the school to apply for for a place. And when the headmaster had her speaking with the English accent,
Right.
she was like, and the way she was, because she was fearless, she was confident, and so he was like, all right, you're asking for 4 admissions, but I'm only going to grant you 1 admission, and that's for this girl who came from the diaspora.
Wow.
So luckily enough, she got admitted,
Mm.
and by the grace of Allah, she was promoted twice in 3 weeks just because of her accent, because she could speak good English.
Yeah.
So that saved my wallet as well for 2 years.
Yes.
But then, um, like the previous discussants have said, the biggest problem we have back home, even at home, where you'd expect people to teach these kids English, Luganda, most of them they speak in English. So it was a bit hard for us. We took them there so they can learn Luganda,
Mm.
but then they are speaking to them in English. So we had to make an emphasis to the relatives to try and speak Luganda to them, as much as most relatives wanted the kids to stay with them because it was an advantage for their kids to learn
For
English
their
as well.
children to learn English. It's a win-win situation there, as I can imagine. Yes.
Exactly.
Mm.
So it was a bit tricky,
Yes.
but Alhamdulillah, we used to send them to the grandparents, my wife's parents, because they at the time the dad was still alive, and he really loved spending time with them. And he would sing with them, he would tell them stories, he would give them, like the local foods, the mayuni, chetumla, barugu, and so on and so forth. And then when we went there, we would speak Luganda with them. So when they came back here, we made it a point, no English in the house, just like Mrs. Khan did.
All right, Sheikh Khalid. Here, Mrs. Khan, I think
Sometimes they would come and speak to you in English,
yes.
and my response and my wife's response, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Period.
Mhm.
So
And then
in that way they get back to Luganda.
Yes.
So that's how we've managed to carry on. And I've always told them that it's always an advantage for you to speak more than one language.
Yes.
So
You,
at the moment,
you don't have one language like a god.
exactly. At the moment,
Yeah.
they also try to learn Swahili, and
Yes.
they also try to learn Arabic. And funny enough, today I went with them at Lidl, and I stayed in the car. I gave Nadia my bank card to go and buy something, and for some reason, she came back with 2 ladies who were speaking Swahili, because she met them at the counter and they were speaking Swahili. So she greeted them in Swahili, and they were like, "Where are you from?" And she was, "I'm with my dad. Where is he? He's outside in the car." So she came with them, and when we introduced each other, I found out that this one of these ladies actually is a very good friend to my cousin in Mombasa.
Yes, small world already done by the issue of language. Okay, Sheikh Khalid, I was just going to say that Mrs. Khan here was talking about the issue of inferiority complex, where she says, I feel in my circle that I know a few families whose children don't speak Urdu, provisional language at all, because they feel that by speaking the language, it's like it sort of brings them down. Well, they have friends, only English people. They celebrate their events and days, but not theirs. So they've sort of wanted to live that life of going down that route. I've seen the hand of Sheikh Mustafa Rumpanga, which I'll come to. But I wanted to relieve you, Sheikh Khalid, by going to the girls themselves. I'll just try to, well, do a bit of both and just hear their own experiences. Nadia, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
So
barakatuh.
tell me, when you went to Uganda and you were starting to learn, to learn Uganda, how difficult or how easy was that for you?
It was a bit hard, but in the end, I finally got there.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was difficult? What did you find most difficult?
Learning how to say animal names in Luganda.
Mborogomo.
Yeah, up to now I still can't. I don't remember how to say it.
What?
But sometimes when Baba tells it to me, I know how to say it, but then I forget it.
Like what?
So then it's hard to know what animal is what.
Ah, right. So what's a goat?
Embuzi.
Okay. And the lion?
Somalia.
A lion. Someone is giving you the answers. Do you feel proud? Do you feel proud that you can actually speak the language? You can speak Luganda when many other children can't speak the language. Do you feel proud?
Yes, I feel proud, and sometimes people from my country bamanyi okwogera Luganda, but then bibatawanya. I feel like sometimes I can just come up to them and teach them how to speak it. When I go to school, sometimes I try and teach my friends how to say some words. In the dining hall, they ask me, how do you say hello in Luganda? And then I'm like, and then I'm like, Oriotia. And then they're like, Orioya. So I try and teach them, but one of my friends, she told me last time we were in the dining hall, and she told me that she can learn any language in 1 second.
Ah, right. Where's
she's from Bangladesh.
All right.
I don't have any Ugandan friends.
Oh, right. Well, when you say that, I was imagining that probably you have some Ugandan friends at school. Okay, so that Bengali
any
friend.
Ugandans in school.
Okay. So the Bengali friend, then did you teach her? Was she able to speak Luganda in the 6 seconds?
No, no.
Yeah.
It was impossible for her. She just gave up straight away.
All right. Okay. Thank you very, very much for that. I'm sure now the parents listening in, well, kakati omanyi n'okugera engero oba tozimanyi? Engero ozimanyi, omanyi engero?
Nedda.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, girls. Very, very proud of you. And I'm sure many parents now
Nadia.
would want.
Nadia.
Naam. Naam.
Tomanya akagero ka nsangi mwana wange.
Oh, Nkalani.
Yeah. Shehali, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and bring in more people to the conversation, but that was fantastic. And actually, to say thank you very much for getting us Khan, who I think was quite a resource in tonight's conversation, brought in a new, another element outside from this conversation. And I think she's the first Pakistani we've had on the program since it started. And I think that speaks volumes. This is our global community conversation. The program is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim, Kayira. Well, be continuing into the conversation, and I'll just get to bring in more people just to get a feel of what your experience has been so far. Sheikh Jafar, I think, had raised a hand, but I don't know whether he ended up getting caught up and got busy. His hand was up, and I was trying to get to him. Oh, he's there. He's available. Sheikh Jafar, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Olunaku munnange luwoomye nnyo. Nsanyusidde nnyo pulogulaamu eyo.
Amin.
Webali okuweereza ne bayizi bannange mwebali kubeerako.
Allahumma amin.
Naye akange kagamba katono nnyo. Nze ndi jjajja Sheikh naye ndi kati ndi jjajja.
Yes.
Kubanga nyina abazzukulu abasukka mu 10. Waba kuno basukka mu 10.
Allahumma amin.
Kale alhamdulillah.
Amin.
Ekigamba abampuliza ssebo n'omuteesiteesi ntera kiteeka tetwekkiririzaamu.
Lack of self-belief.
Tulakinga ekintu ekyo, okwagala ekintu kyaffe okwekkiririzaamu. Omusiraamu ne wekkirizaamu nti ndi muki musiraamu bakyakulabirako. N'omuganda ne wekkiririzaamu nti ndi muki ndi muganda. N'omukyoli bw'otyo ekyo kikyatubulamu. Mbadde ndi wano olwaleero mbadde nyina omukutu gw'endiko gwa bika ne bampeereza akayimba dda simanyi nti kyamaanyi waliwo oli seeka wange obuseera bwali bwakabaka tebuliiwo ndowooza gwali mu ntandikwa y'Amiini awo baaweerezako ndowooza pulogulaamu za Buganda ezaasigalawo ebiseera ebyo zaali nnyimbe na lulimi Oluganda. Pulogulaamu y'olulimi Oluganda ku Radio Uganda. Njijjukira nnyo nga ndi muto naye balina akayimba akaleetanga olulimi nga abantu ba Buganda mufube okukuuma Oluganda lwammwe olw'edda luleke kuzaawa. Saabitegeera naye oli akampeereza n'endaba ekiriwo olwaleero nti ddala olulimi. Naye baganda bange ne bannyinaze twekkiririzeemu. Kinkoze bubi nnyo nvuddewo ewaka, nkoze bubi nnyo wallaahi. Kubanga abazzukulu bange abasinga mbalina bazze mu luwummula babazaalidde wano. Badde njagala nkuweeyo abaana 2 oba 3 gwe b'oyagala okuva ku myaka gy'oyagala. Obabuuze by'oyagala obbakola ki obbabuuza.
Amin.
Naye basobola bulungi. Basobola bulungi naye ekyobutekkiririzaamu. Seeka kiva na Kampala lwanzijukira nga ndi musomesa twayambazanga abantu abaana ebikutiya
for speaking Luganda.
Vernacular speaker wajja kulambaza ekigumba otambule nakyo olunaku lwonna. Yeyo embeera gye twalimu. Ate tusuubira nti omwana bw'ayogera Oluganda oba olulimi lwe lwonna Oluzungu tajja dwogere kitasoboka. Bwe nagenda neeyongerayo okusoma nti omwana emyaka ndowooza egitandika egyo asobola okuyiga ennyumi. Waliwo omwana ayogedde awo avuddewo agaye nti waliwo omwana asobola okuyiga olulimi buli dakiika tono n'ayiga oluki. Kugamba dde olulimi ku mwana omuto. Oluganda lw'Omuganda lwa buki lwa bwereere. Ajja kwogera Oluganda n'olulimi alukole ki. N'ogenda mu maka agamu tuli wano Seeka nga ewaka wonna boogera Luzungu. Omukyala avuddeko
njagala okuyingiramu because part of the dilemma gye tulina intermarriages otuuse owasizza omukyala wange mukyala Muswahili mukyala Mulango Kayira ndi Muganda Munyarwanda. The kind of mixes that we have are so deep that now the divide, this is the language that is going to be the language in the house, becomes a problem. How do you deal with that?
Kale akati oyo kambeere koje ojje sekendi nakali nere kasooke njogere n'omusajja ayogera olulimi ffenna lwe tukola ki bwanga mu Swahili asobola okwogera oluki Oluswahili. Muganda mu Congo naye basobola okwogera Oluswahili. Lwaki tulemera ku Luzungu lwokka? omukyala gojjeeka omupakisitaani betwenyumirizaamu ennimi zaabwe bazikuumye. Omukyala atugambye ekigambo nti ye oluyingira ewaka oluzungu lukola ki nga lukomye
nga luzikira.
Ye muwala wange kyakola ewuwe era abaana ne bakikula nga bakimanyi. Abaana bano basanga ekizibu olw'okuba gye bagenda baboogeza mu luzungu nabali baagala boogere luzungu eri gye basomera. Kakati bwe bajja kuyite kuzannyira ku bwongo kugamba ne bakugezesa nagamba mu luzungu gwe muddemu mu Luganda obafuuka atawulidde ajja kwogera. Naye bw'osigala nga ogondedde byakola kibya bannange omuntu obutaba na lulimi kigambo kinene mu kirowoozeeko nnyo mu mbeera zonna nga situnudde ennimi zaffe. Omwana yeetaaga olulimi lwe nga bw'anaagenda mu bbaasi tutudde mu nnyonyi anaasobola okugamba kitaawe Kayira nti taata omusajja akugwira ng'ate olyambula kankomaawo naye mwebale
Mushenga tonagenda ndaba Khalid abadde awanise omukono. Maybe Khalid, you can come back in please. It looks like you had something. And Maureen is Narunga is already agreeing, saying I agree with the speaker. Kids can learn many languages simultaneously, but they need meaningful input from adults. Yes, Khalid.
Naam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh ya Khalid.
Mbadde nsaba kwongerezaako ku nsonga ya Sheikh katono. Sheikh katono ojja kunnyamba otakutira abawuliriza abalala. Seke ensonga gy'ayogeddeko oba olina ekibuuzo ky'omubuuzisa naye nga sinnakituukako ku nsonga y'okwekkiriranya tetwekkiririzaamu bwe buzibu. Ekimu ku bintu ebinjagaza Abatanzania si lwakuba nti nina omusaayi Omutanzania naye ndowooza mu nsi ezituliraanidde awo tewali bantu baagala ggwanga lyabwe
utaifa. They love their country.
Kaakati olw'okuba nti tetwekkiririzaamu nze nina n'abantu abamu be nawulirako bannayuganda olina dda nti abaana lwaki mbatuma amannya ago mujja kukalubiriza bannaabwe okubayita
la ilaha illallah okubiyita Kayira.
Tukyalina obuzibu obufaanaganako bwe butyo nti tetwekkiririzaamu ate nga wallahi twagala tetwagala kijja kumala kidde kitulume. Banze nina abaana bendabyeko ne bazaalidde wano naye nga Oluganda tebalumanyi naye ne bwe bajja mu community ne Coventry mu mizannyo twali nabo naye wallahi nga tebasobola kumixinga n'abantu balala era atambula ati ne mwannyina. Ne bwe mbeera nga muli mu mikolo oba nti gyayidi oba gyaki era bo batuula bokka babiri
bokka.
Eno mu community enzungu tebajjayo ate n'eno mu yaffe eŋŋanda nayo tebajjayo.
Like Maureen said, nga Maureen bwe yagambye from a Swedish perspective.
Ne babeerawo nga tebalina sense of identity. Ekinzizaayoko ku nsonga ya mwannyinaze Maureen gye yagambye nti kaakati akoze atya kubanga eri Oluswidi babagirabe bati naye bati naye ensi zetuwangalira nti tukimanyi nti zirimu ebintu bingi tuteeka ebigere wansi n'ogamba kannemereko omwana wange mugayidinge bw'ati aleme kunwanjaga aleme kugenda mu bigurupu aleme kukola
n'ogezaako.
It is the same concept gye tuba tukaalinga ne our languages.
Is it possible to do like evening classes to take out to some darasa for darasa and we start putting there something else? Our children every Friday evening we have Luganda lessons or Runyankore lessons or lessons. Now?
Okuyamba like once nti nekyo kiyinza okuyamba ne tugamba nti mu wiiki tubeera ne session y'Oluganda tubeera ne session y'Olunyankole oba n'ey'Oluswahili oba n'ey'Olunyoro and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Ati okuddayo ku kibuuzo kye wabuuza ekya intermarriages ndowooza it's one of the things nange byenina mu family yange. Nino olulimi lwe nali agadde abaana bange bayige. And that is Swahili. But to me, Swahili comes first.
Yes.
Naye ate bwe neesanga nti nina olulimi ate lwempuliziganyaamu ne munnange, Oluswahili nalufuula secondary. Neŋŋamba kale Oluganda kalubeere primary. Kubanga go maama waabwe alwogera nange ndwogera. Kati luno olwange njaddu bayigiriza mpola mpola as we go along.
Yes. Hi, Sigara. I think Maureen wants to say something. Maureen, you know, this is a conversation, and therefore, whenever we can.
Yes. I wanted to react about the lessons thing.
Having weekly lessons of the
last,
yes.
I don't believe in that concept. I think that the easier way for the kids is to like be in a natural setting. Like you get like 4 or 5 families which you trust, because we need to help our kids to have proper friends. We can't just say our kids go and meet whoever you want to meet. But if you get like 3, 4 families which can work together as a community, maybe put up play dates, put up parties, and then on that parties you make like programs which have to do with our language. But lessons, we've tried lessons here, they don't work. Kids just meet people who are really not good for them. They start making gangs, they start making wrong things, but make a community just as we have at home.
Maureen, here in UK, there is something that has been tried that actually ended up becoming very interesting. Only that the problem then again was for those who could understand as much Luganda. And that's on Fridays, there was a book. They would bring in books of stories to read, Ngeta Mbizinga or something like that. And people were beginning to pick interest. But actually, the people who are picking interest in that were the very people now who are already almost able to speak Luganda. So you are not bringing more people on board, but you are also trying to help those who had it not to lose it. Chances, you know, like there are languages that I speak 12 languages. And in these 12 languages that I do speak, depending on where I am, there are languages that I start losing because I've not used them for some time. The moment I get into that environment, taking 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, and then everything starts coming up, you know, it starts picking up. So language is about usage. If you don't use it, you lose it. Yes?
I agree with you, but still for the kids, it is easier in a normal setting than in a classroom. For
but
us,
how do we get these normal settings, Maureen? Considering like, the pressure that we live in.
Community building, that's what I'm thinking. For me, it is difficult because where I am, I'm the only Muganda. But if I were in a community where they are Baganda and I trust these families, we could make play dates, we could make parties and so on and so forth. But for my part, I'm alone, so I can't use that. But I used to have classes where I had a lady who would get lessons to my kids, but she was bringing other kids who were not good for my family.
Right. So I mean, that's another dilemma now that we have. Chempanga Uganda ogainti abazukulu we bali awo ate bonna bakuli bazayibwa Bungereza bakuyite Bungereza wakikono tabange kya hide kyali clear yakola deliberate decision abaana n'abatwala Uganda ng'okikozo okyokuba nti n'abazukulu basobodde they are able to speak the language.
Okuvira ddala mu ntandikwa muwala wange ekintu yali muto naye ng'alaba obukulu bw'ensonga. Kakati ne mukyala jjajja mukazi naye ng'alaba obukulu bw'ensonga. Kakati okuviira ddala mu buto nga twogera luki twogera Luganda. Era ekyomukyalo Omupakisaani oli eyavuddeko nti bwe baakola taata waabwe najja ne babeera nga nabo bekoze ekibeeyawudde bafunye amaka era naye n'akiteekawo Oluganda lukoma wa? Lukoma ku ssomero. Manya Oluzungu lukoma wa? Lukoma ku ssomero. Bw'akusaba atuuka wala nti bw'amusaba kyayagala ng'amugamba siwulidde ajja kufuba agenda anoonye ekigambo ekyo naye bw'anaakugezesa nga bw'olaba atagadde n'oddamu mu luzungu awakuwangudde ye omwana mu buli ngeri awangudde kuba kiri kyeye kyakola ki ye kyayagala naye kati gwe naawe oteeka okuba tube n'amateeka tube ne rules nti nga situnagira tetunalya mmere tugenda kusaala mpa kyakulabirako n'amanya nti taata we naaba ngenda omusaba ettaano ez'oku ssomero nyina kwogera bwe ruti okomyewo taata osula otya mwana mbuuza mu luzungu how are you sitomuddamu ate gwe bona omuzuukusa owange muzuukuse mumuzuukuke salamu aleikum mwasuzi mutya mpola mpola manyi si kyangu n'akamu kubanga obuzibu abaana bano bwe basanga eri babagamba nti temwogera luki temulwogera
everybody knew. Thanks very much. That's from Maureen, who says thanks very much for this session. Unfortunately, I have to leave. Yes, fantastic. I mean, this was really, really good, Maureen, and getting a view from another country, I think that gives a different perspective. Here in UK, surprisingly, I mean, the attitude is they will allow people to enhance their own cultures, but English, of course, remains there. Nobody's going to enforce it upon you. They will find ways of, keeping it that way. So that is definitely without a doubt. We thank you so much for bringing the Swedish aspect to the conversation tonight. MK, I wanted to bring you in. I don't know if you're at work, but you had raised some important issues that I thought maybe we could try to engage or involve a little bit more. MK, are you able to come in? Hello, NK. NK, Baden Kunonya. NK. Nayamadan brought another issue here, which she says it should start from our homes first. Teach our kids basic words in our homes. Now, I actually have to really, my hands are up. I'm one of the culprits of this. I've not been able, and it's quite a shame for a person who speaks so many languages and where languages have really been my value. I've not been able to teach my children those so many languages, or even actually deciding on the language. And partly it's to do with the cultural, the intermarriages that we've had, and so I feel bad. But the interesting thing now is my own children now are the ones who have come back to me and say, now we are not going to speak English, we're going to speak Luganda. And I found it very, very interesting. So, but in our home, we'll have at least one of 4 languages taking place at any one point. So we will have, yes, Luganda, we'll have Swahili, we have Kinyarwanda sometimes, like sort of coming in. And then the first 2 kids were born in Rwanda. So they consider themselves as Rwandese. There's a whole debate that happens inside the house. So they take the Rwandan side of me. They say they are Rwandese. Then you have all the others now born in the UK. They are British now, but they are British Ugandans. So the whole confusion that is in the house. Others now are sort of claiming now they are also Tanzanians because my wife is half Manyema from Tanzania and Congo, and therefore there's that Congolese Tanzanian aspect. It gets so confusing. So maybe you have that particular situation in your own home. It would be good just to sort of explore and look into that. NK, you say you're at work, that is accepted. Aida says a structured home. I think I was just about to read. A structured setting for kids to learn the languages may work on a virtual platform parents can access. Yes, it might, but I think you would need the way you do the curriculum has to be in such a way that it would get interesting. It would allow the children to sort of enjoy this. Bwana Ibra in the studios there, I would like to plead with you to just replay 2 of the clips, 3 of the small clips about the pronunciations and how we can enhance children. For those people who missed, who came in late, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. It's now 19 minutes past 9 o'clock in the United Kingdom. Well, many comments here coming in. The chat room is beginning to heat up. It would be very good to hear your comments. Probably you've had a situation like mine where you have a dilemma with language. What language do you enhance? What would you push forward? I worked in one of the best schools in Uganda, but kids spoke English at school, and after school, each kid spoke their native language. Wow, I would like to hear that. Unfortunately, you're at work, and it would have been good just to explore that because, again, that was totally different considering the vernacular aspect that many of us were pushed in. H says that the worst above in our community has no Uganda speakers. It's always English. So very shocking that as the children who are we trying to we are uh, the worst above in our community has no Luganda speeches. It's always English. So very shocking that as children who are trying to, well, we find it hard. I think you're trying to say there. But teachers find it that children who speak their own languages at home perform well in proper English language and grammar. Oh, H, why don't I just bring you in here and we listen to a bit of that, please? I think that's quite an interesting angle to this. H, can you come in, please? Hello, H.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And the name being H?
The name being Hawa.
Hawa. Oh, how good to have you, Hawa. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
So you're saying many of the speeches in our community you have found that are in English, and that doesn't help young people.
Yes, it doesn't really help because for me as a mother, I brought up my kids. They're born here. They speak Luganda very fluently.
Yes, really?
Yes, and
who is that giving us salam alaikum?
Yeah.
Who is that giving us salam alaikum there in the background?
Some young man.
Yeah, well, I wanted to speak to him in Luganda. That's why I was.
Okay, speak to him in Luganda. Abdul Majid, say salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah Abdul Majid. Oriotia.
Alhamdulillah.
Oriburuji.
Yeah.
What is
Mama Alua? Mama Alua. Again, master doctor. Yeah, man, get it. 7 Texas, get a masu.
There's some basics there. But
now?
Yes.
So how are you? You say that the teachers have found that
yes, because like I personally
perform better in English.
Yes, because I have the evidence. Because it's like when I took my kids to school, they usually don't go through preschool or anything. They know Luganda, maybe some Arabic, and then what really happens? I've got to talk to teachers in the beginning when my daughter just joined school.
Yes.
Basically, the teachers here are very helpful because they get kids from Spanish countries, like different European countries where kids don't speak English at all, but they are so helpful. My daughter couldn't say an English sentence because I made it particular that we are Ugandans and we should be proud to be Uganda. Having traveled to many countries, I would say like I've been to India, I knew what the importance of having children, knowing that you're proud, the pride of being a Ugandan, Pearl of Africa, of having your own country, the pride. It's like a lot of parents, as you said, we have no pride of being Ugandans. So like, I'm so proud because like when you travel and see like people can communicate, if you see Western, these people from European Union, they speak to their children in their own language. So I usually tell my kids that be proud that you're Ugandans and we come from the Pearl of Africa. The first week when my daughter went to school, it was all English. It was like new to her because all she needs like, hello, hello, how are you? So if they told her to say a sentence, but teachers tried their level best. They used to record her and Google and find out her stories. So they would say, what did you do over the weekend? They gave her the opportunity to say it in Luganda. But me as a parent, I've seen the improvement she's done in English to the extent that she's won awards in class. And the teacher said, it's because at home, you use your home language. If in that case we were using English, she wouldn't be as good as she is now because she learns from the teachers, the English. She doesn't learn from me. It's from the teacher. Most of us parents have not been to school. I would say that I'm not good at English. It's a second language. But my daughter is very good in class. Prepositions, they teach them from a young age how to read properly and speak proper English. I wouldn't want to be like when she comes home, we speak English. They've never had, they even at in the normal setting, my kids at one time, they thought I didn't know how to speak English. Because at home, in the house, we only use Luganda. And
so how did you come up to that decision? Was it deliberate now to protect your language, to protect your culture, or was it because, again, like you said, you were not that very good in English?
I was. Why I came up with this is like, as I've been growing up, I've moved to places where people are not proud to be Ugandans, and I'm always proud to be a Ugandan. And you see, I will give an example. We went to Uganda. My kids were speaking Luganda. We had neighbors who are Ugandan. Then one lady made a comment, said, "Oluganda telutunda." But they've been born here, but they were speaking Luganda fluently from the word go. You can't tell my kids, you can't really say anything. My kids can't understand because they are here.
I think that's the bit that even the inferiority complex, and Khalid brought it back, Sheikh Jafar brought it back, the issue of not feeling proud of our own languages. And
you see, when you start to travel, you see like how the Asians are.
Yes.
I lived in India for 3 or 4 years, and I got the feeling, the pride of knowing to love where you come from and who you are. It's because this is one thing, like we are Uganda, it's like one parent, we met the parent on a train, and the parent was like, had my kids speaking Luganda and was like, oh, these kids tend to say, oh, Nanteza. And then they were calling them, so they said, oh, so their daughter couldn't speak Luganda and wanted something. So he said that, oh, mwana wange byo tabyogera. And I was like, okay, come again. Mwana wo tabyogera. So what's wrong? You know, let me tell you, what's wrong? If I'm everywhere, I feel free to talk to them anything, because I know we can talk a language whereby other people, and then people ask, what language are you speaking about? Because it's like, when you come to communities where I live now, the Tanzanians, Zanzibar people, we go to their communities.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, this is where my kids are very shocked. When we come to Ugandan communities, it's English. So my kids usually ask me, do we have a community? Because when we go for the Swahili, they will speak Swahili up to the end. Unless you can ask for food, you might not understand anything. And this has really prompted my children.
Yeah, I had a question there, because could it be that the Ugandan situation, I think, has ended up being that difficult because we have so many languages? Because I was actually trying to get Mr. Senior Student Ismail Mugisha to come into the conversation, because with a country like Rwanda, where you have one language, it is easier for you to choose and say you're going to teach this child, a language that will become an easier mode of conversation. Uganda now has, we have 54 tribes, 54 languages. You'll have an Itesot, you'll have a Nubian, you'll have an Alur, you have Lugbana, you have a Minyankore, you have a Minyorudoro. All of these people now are coming in, and then we are all sort of congregating. Congregating. Could it be that actually now could make it slightly difficult for Ugandans, sort of, because like in Nigeria, they have so many languages, but despite having so many languages, their state kind of, the federal nature of the government means a Yoruba will stand out and they will speak Yoruba and they will be comfortable with it. A Hausa will be from up north and they will be speaking the language. Many, for example, Igbos or Yorubas who will go up north in Abuja, for example, in Hausa land, they end up having to learn Hausa as a way of living. And many people in Uganda, for example, have sort of tried and learned Luganda. Luganda becomes very easy. But there are those nationalistic, tribalistic, prejudices that makes it difficult for one now to say, let us choose Uganda as the language, and then we just use it, probably teach all the children. Because it might be that I might teach my children Luganda, but I'm going to visit a friend who is Nubian and he's teaching his children Nubian. The essence of having that one language that would be a mode of communication between these young children coming from the same country might be complicated.
No, I would say no. Why I would say that? Personally, I would say I'm a mixed race person. When I say mixed race, I'm kind of like part of like Nubian, and I learned Luganda. And another thing why I say no, well, you know, so when they say this is the Ugandan community, okay, let's say when Uganda, a lot of Ugandans, let's be you're from Acholi. When I went to Uganda, I took my kids to Kalamoja. I took them far, all those far places to see people, different languages. But the thing is like, what have not, the language as Luganda, we have Luganda and Swahili, of which even they are learning Swahili, because it's like we live in a community whereby we have the Zanzibar people, Tanzanians, and then we have the Somalis from Kenya. Those also teach their children. When we go to Somali organization, it's Somali, you know, you won't listen. Even these Somalis from Kenya, they will try to speak Somali. And then when you come to like our community, it's always, I know two times my daughter have asked me that, Mommy, how come we Ugandans don't have a community? I said, we have a community. She said, but the kids speak English. You hardly find kids who are like very fluent, because you know what, it makes them feel so bad, because it's like, I usually say, oh, we are going to the Ugandan party. And then they find themselves speaking English because they have to, because that's what everybody is speaking. The parents, and even we as parents, you see, if we chose like we are going for a community, let's say in East London, and then they say, okay, it's grand competition, and they start saying in Luganda, I do believe most of us, even though we come from like Acholi or anywhere, a lot of people have a little knowledge about Luganda. People would catch up. But the thing is, like, as Ugandans, what I've realized, people don't find, other people have commented that pride, but they don't know the beauty of a child having their own language. Because I've learned from my children's English teachers that they've told me that, do you know why your kids perform well in English? It's because at home, when they come here in school, when they teach them prepositions, they'll get them right. But you see, if you come back to us parents who don't know English, what's going to happen? We are going to teach them, I went when it's not even I went, come this way when it's not come this way. You know, you see, English grammar is very hard. Because it's just, I look at their work and I'm thinking like, when I was studying at that age, 6 years, I didn't know all this. I didn't know adverbs, I didn't know pronouns, and this is what they're teaching these children. But imagine coming back home to we parents who don't know English properly. I usually tell my kids, I don't want to speak English because I'm not sure whether I'm going to use the right word. And then they read their books. When you read them, you see how it is. We parents have really had an effort to put our children back by speaking English to them at home and failing them. That's when I've had people saying that, you know, however much your children get educated here, they have no progress, or they won't get a good job, or they won't do this. It's like, this is the less pride we have, because you see, we've affected them, because it's like, if you tell them, I usually tell my kids, be proud, you're Black, you're from Uganda. And when they talk at school, they talk so much. We are Ugandans, and sometimes even the teachers get confused that maybe they are born in Uganda, but I show them the pride of where they are coming from and the ownership. This is what we Ugandans are losing, because all I remember, like, because you see, German has a, what is it called? The same, we have an ostrich on our flag, and for them, they have the colors, kind of. So it's one day I was at their school and I was noticing German, and I was like, I told them,
you mean with the flag?
The flag, yes. So I had to talk to the teacher that, you know, so they were saying that, because there are few Black people in their school. I said that, we come from Uganda, the colors are almost the same, but we have an ostrich. And then I brought them the flag and they had to put it on. And they said, so what is your main language? I said, Swahili and Luganda. And I was so proud that one day they had to tell Sumaya if she could try to write Luganda for them, it's because like to bring it out, because we lose that as Ugandans. Some people don't know that even we exist. They think that because they say Kenya, Uganda, Kenya comes out. Uganda, sometimes we are hidden. It's just because we are not coming out. And we as parents, you see, even the community, I do feel bad for our community. I've never gone to a community whereby it's fully saying, Kale, let's say they will speak Swahili, Luganda. Okay, if it's Acholi, they can speak Acholi or Nubian. No, it's always English. And even sometimes if people are trying to speak Luganda, they say, oh, you have to make it easier for the children who don't understand. Let us try. The children should come to the community and understand the pride, where we are coming from. Especially the parents who have tried their level best. I know people who are older who have grown up here who speak Luganda. Let's try. So it's just like we have to try hard. Okay? I think you hear him. Is he speaking English to me? He's speaking Luganda. So Sheikh, I do like this program that I always feel.
I can feel the passion. I can hear the passion. And I think
yes, because I
really
when I see you are Ugandan
and things to take away.
Yes, there is something like we should really get to this point whereby that okay, if people would prefer that okay, the majority, but everybody who is here, I would say in Europe, when you go to Kampala, you see people who speak Luganda. Even those people you least expect, you see persons think like, oh my God. As we went to Kalamoja, people were speaking different language, but they had most of those people there could really you could understand something. Communication is there. But here there is no communication. You go for a wedding, it's to be English. My children usually say, Mommy, is this Ugandan? Because we've gone to Somali weddings. If you can't ask for food in Somali, they will see you, you're putting, they will just give you food. That will be the explanation. But if you go to the Zambia, Tanzanian barbecues, they will speak Swahili. And my kids have embraced Swahili for that.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, Hawa, for that.
Yes.
Let's just bring in more people to the conversation. I'm sure you really challenged many of the parents. Someone was even asking, where do you live? Probably they want to bring their children around your children so that they can start getting customized that. Where do you live, Hawa?
Yes, I live in Milton Keynes. So if you want to, we have a mixed culture and we are all French,
Milton
we are
Keynes
Muslims.
Is clear with the Zanzibari, with the Tanzanian community. That's very well known. Thank you very much. I can see Jaden's hand. Ibra in the studio, please, if you can have those clips ready, and then once we hear from Jaden, then we'll just play those clips for those who have just joined us late. Ismail Mugisha, I'll be coming to you as well just to get the Rwandan perspective, because there was the issue of superiority or inferiority complex, not feeling ourselves, that failure to sort of feel proud of who we are. I think once we get that in, and it is painful because Baganda used to have a lot of pride. You know, they would talk in the Muganda, and someone would just start talking about their lineage, and it would be something to be proud about. What happened? Jaden, welcome. Hello, Mr. Jaden. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
You have been listening in, I'm sure, in the background. They are probably fuming or burning. What is your own story on this? What's your own take on this?
Yes, my own take is much of the conversation has been quite positive, but my own take is that people are coming on the assumption that all families are single tribe or single language families, where it's easy for the children to be taught one language. But in cases where you've got a diverse family, say the husband is from Ankole and the wife is from Lang or Arua, that kind of thing. So it becomes quite problematic. What language do they adopt? And in this day and world, you cannot force, say, your wife to learn your language. Those days it was easy because they would come and live with you and your parents to begin with, and then they learn the language. But here you've met in Milton Keynes, for example, or met in Newcastle, you're speaking different languages. It becomes a very big challenge, and the expectation that the children should speak the same language becomes
So how do we deal with that, Jaden? Because considering the fact that you need to give the children a sense of belonging, because would they then lose the sense of belonging because you as parents are, you are unable probably to agree on what could take? Is it not possible? Someone was saying that, well, and we know that from experience that children can take on more than one language at a time, because when they are still young, they can actually absorb a lot. Is there no value, for example, when you go to Uganda, don't you go to your parents, your parents, the father's side and parents on the mother's side? Is there that? Because sometimes something happens.
Language is okay, much as it identifies the person, it's mainly for communication. Let's take Uganda as a point in question. We've got at least 50 or so tribes in Uganda, but we all identify ourselves under the same flag, under the same emblem, and not one tribe is above the other, and everything is conducted in English, which unites us. So the language element, to say it's going to give the children a sense of identity, that should be on the side. It's just when they identify yourself as Ugandan, irrespective of the language, there should be a sense of pride that at least we've got that flag there, we've got that country, we've got a head of state, and we are proud to be Ugandans. And it's not necessarily in one particular language. Because
Mr. Jaden, is that a failing? Is that a failing on our part? Because a country like Tanzania has 63 tribes, and that is almost 63 languages. But every Tanzanian, you might actually never know which tribe someone belongs to from a Tanzanian perspective, because Swahili has been enhanced, so Swahili has gone in. Nearly everybody uses Swahili, except those people actually who are living probably on the very sidelines that they have lost, touch with that. But almost everyone speaks, Swahili. That is a very big uniting factor. Now, for a country like Uganda with 54 languages, is there not a way that we can come? Because English is not really our language. Is it a historical mistake that we cannot correct?
Yes, it's a very big historical mistake, and it started during the time of the colonialists, and if you remember, they had this policy of divide and rule, and they were pitting one tribe or one tribe against another tribe as a way of creating this unity so that they could rule the whole of us. So with that in mind, different tribes did not want to learn a central language because to them, their language was superior compared to the other languages, and that's why we still got those divided languages. But now I'm pleased they're starting to introduce Swahili. Okay, it's foreign to Uganda, but they've started introducing Swahili in primary schools, and it's going to be compulsory up to, I'm not sure what level, but Swahili is going to be one of the compulsory languages in addition, alongside English. So that's going to build up from that point. Now, the other thing which I want to add on, and this goes back to what Mrs. Khan was saying, is that language is built a little bit at a time. But if we look at the clips that you showed initially, we expect a child who has grown and lived in London for 8-10 years, we expect them to go to Luero or to Lira or to Soroti and to speak the language or understand the language in one visit or one holiday. That's not going to happen. And when the child doesn't understand or doesn't pronounce certain words correctly, as we have demonstrated here, when one of the children was saying a lion in Uganda and they are not pronouncing it well. Yeah. Yes. There you go again, Kassim, you're laughing at that child, and that's going to discourage that child from learning the language.
No, not at all, because the laughter, it's just a natural reaction, and we yes. Post that, and then you keep training.
Yeah,
not to laugh when it's funny.
Yeah. So, but back in the villages, the child's age mates laugh at them when they speak broken Luganda. So it's not going to motivate them to speak that language, and they don't have the time. when they make the mistakes, they'll run to the parents. What is this called? Or what is this child saying? Instead of the parents saying, no, go out there and fight it your way, they say, no, this child is saying, so we refer to English and try to direct the direction of the conversation in English. So
Ismail Musoke seems to have a view on that. If I stay on Jaden, let me just bring in Ismail. Ismail, salam alaikum.
Welcome salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
You don't think this language, language is just about communication?
No, I think language is a lot more than just communication. Language is identity, language is culture. And it's absolutely impossible to separate the two. For example, you see in some languages, you have, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but one word can mean so many different things. And I'm sure you can think of examples where one word can mean so many different things, depending on the context, depending on who you're speaking to, depending on the situation. So, language is a lot deeper than communication. Communication is important, but there's a lot more that goes into it. I, for myself, I was grown up over here in the UK. We were victims of that, of that culture of, we speak English to the kids. I was one of those kids who I understand. And, I just look at you as you're speaking, but I don't even understand a single word. Or I could pick up some things, for example, in Jakukuba, I don't know why that's one of the first things we learn.
It's always the bad words they come in.
Yeah, but as I got older and I'm married, I have my children, I want to learn more. So I'll be making an effort, alhamdulillah, to learn more, and I'm getting better. And that's Luganda, and also learning Swahili as well, because for my wife's family, they speak Swahili. So also make an effort to learn that as well as an adult. But as a child, when you're younger, it's a lot more easier to learn. So the 2 points I'd like to make, first of all, it's about understanding historical context. So for example, we can't have this conversation without removing the effects of colonization and what that has had on us as a people. The inferiority complex. So, for example, Sheikh Kayira, sometimes when I walk into a room and I start speaking and people hear the accent, and I feel uncomfortable because I think to myself, why should that be something that is seen as better? Because you speak in this way. How does that separate me in terms of my intellect or anything? I'm a normal person just like anyone else. But you can see those subtle, so as a child, you might be encouraged to speak more English because you feel that that's how you're going to get the praise. If I speak with this English accent and I go back to my community, people are going to respect me. They're going to love me more. So that can have an effect on you even as a child. So being wary of those comments that we make sometimes, and it's a deeper thing that I think, but we can reverse that, inshallah, especially with the younger generation coming up. If we try with them, to encourage them as much as we can and give them that motivation, which brings me to my second point, because the speaker before, he when you laughed and he commented on that and he said you shouldn't have laughed because it might discourage the child. That's something that I've personally experienced. Where I want to know you go Uganda, no kobe mbogo, to no be tabo cow. And they start laughing and making those jokes. Now we know man, gamba. But a person should, we should try and encourage the youth as much as we can. Okay, if they say something funny, it's funny, you're a human. But also to give that encouragement. Keep trying. Keep going. And you'll find that this will encourage more of the young people who've grown up here in the diaspora and in different countries to love the language, the more we encourage them. But the truth is, Sheikh Kayira, is they're not going to speak Luganda the way, that natural way. It's always going to be a bit broken.
Yes, there will definitely have to be that influence. And I think it should be allowed, because you see, one thing that has made English really almost rule the world, if I may use the word, is the flexibility with English, how you can actually customize it to your own needs. The English that you speak, a Nigerian will come, an Indian will come. They'll speak, they'll speak in the way that they communicate. You have to accept them. If you don't accept them, then you have to learn how to deal with them. And if there is something that is going to bring you together, you will just find a way of trying to understand the accent that they are having. But ultimately, a conversation has to take place. And I think we need to get to a point where we have to agree between ourselves that whether you have this accent or that accent, the point is about communication. You want to be able to convey a message.
Kayira, did you? I don't know if you've looked into these studies, but there are studies that show that when children learn different languages whilst they're still young, it actually helps with their brain development. It helps to open up pathways in the brain. So even if we're looking,
how I did submit in that context.
Yes, so so learning languages, and even as an adult, it does have a positive effect on the different ways you can benefit from. I'm sure because you speak many languages yourself. But this is a great way for us to bond as families. It's a great way for us to build communities. But it needs to be a community effort. It starts off in the homes, but then also within the community, making that effort. I have, in terms of my role, because I would say I'm quite young, when I'm with my peers my age, and we laugh and we move because we have to embrace it. If we keep hiding from it, then
All right, no, fantastic. I mean, that's definitely food for thought. And there's a clip that has been doing the rounds that I found very, very interesting, of this girl in the United States who was graduating from a university and ended up taking her doctor's oath, I think, in Luganda, and everybody clapped. I'm sure probably they didn't even understand, but the fact that she had sort of put the message across. Ibra, do we have that clip ready, please? Is it possible to play? Are you fine to play? And then I'm still with the Dan on this. I just wanted to just bring in that little moment and the difference that it makes. This was some graduation in a university in the United States, doctors qualifying, and then she decided, it looks like it was a decision probably from all the other candidates. We only see this particular clip because it stands out, but most likely, I mean, most of the others are sort of, I can see some probably Japanese or Chinese, and it might be that they also chose to read from there, given that they're all holding papers. But I think it was a deliberate thing now to sort of consider the cultures where these people are coming from. Let's have that clip, please.
Kayira Barazi, Uganda.
Neeyama okussa ekitiibwa mu balwadde bange, nja kukuuma obwesigwa obunkwasiddwa ng'omujjanjabi. Neeyama okulabirira abalwadde bange n'abantu baabwe nga bwe nandirabiridde abaagalwa bange bennyini.
And you can see now the translation is put up on the screen. Yes, it is definitely something that had been practiced and thought through. You see the difference that it immediately makes. It looks like they had selected a couple of students from the different areas, and they were coming in to read from their own languages. Jaden, as we wrap up on this, what's the way forward? What can we do now? We have this particular situation where I thought I wanted us to have a solution, where you have multicultural marriages. It might even be that you are both from Uganda. That might be easier. But imagine you have married a Nigerian, and many Nigerians now are marrying into Ugandan communities. You've married a Nigerian, and therefore the cultures are even different. The languages have no aspect that you speak, and yet we still want to have that language that we can call our language.
I think I'll go back to what Brother Ismail said, that language is more than communication, and it's a culture and an identity. That's quite true, but what identities it's representing? Because culture and identity is not limited to Uganda only, because you can have the Ugandan culture and identity in Newcastle, for example. It's very different, because culture is the way you do things, the way you speak in a particular area and in a particular time. Now, my children are not going to speak Luganda in the way their grandparents in Bombo or in Luzira speak. So that culture is quite alien to them, much as they speak the language. So in this case, the Luganda becomes more a means of communication. Yes. But moving forward, I think striking the balance is a language which will make us understand each other, whether it's English, whether it's Swahili, whether it's Luganda. It's that family nucleus that has got to decide what is good for that family before they look outwards. Because if there is no, the communication within the family is not right, then the family will not function well. And then we can mold and see will our child or our children fit in the wider society. So when they go back to Uganda with the language that they're going to speak, are they going to pronounce certain words which will turn out to be abusive to the people in Uganda? So we mold them outwards, but we have to begin from the inside. What language are we comfortable with in our families before we move outside?
Fantastic. 5 minutes to the end of the program, and I'm bringing in Sheikh Amregia. Thank you very much, Jeten, for that. Sheikh Amregia, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa-alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The moment I flagged this post, you are the first person to contact me, seriously concerned and very happy that we were finally talking about this. It is something that is very close to your heart.
Yeah, because nze kulwange Kassim kubuulira nti nga Hawa bw'ayogedde nti bannayuganda abasinga obungi abali mu diaspora, we are not proud of our language. We are not proud of our
country,
tribe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If we are proud of our tribe and language, we'll be teaching our children the language, our mother tongue language. Naye olw'okuba nti tetuli olulimi luseebengerera lugenda, nze nakugambye Kayira nti obeera e Uganda mu bantu nga Baganda bali badde boogera waka Luganda, naye ne weesanga nga boogera nabo nga balinga abali wano mu Bungereza nga boogera n'abaana baabwe Luzungu, nga n'abaana tebasobola kwogera Luganda. Nze nakugambye nti bwe tunaagendera ku mbeera eno gye tulimu mu Uganda, in 50 years Oluganda lujja kuba terukyamenyebwa mu nsi, nga nalwo lulinga lulimi lugwira nga bw'olaba Oluswayiri. Kubanga abantu tebakyalina pride eyo egamba nti ndi Muganda nteekwa okwogera Oluganda. Senga tuneewaayo ne tutandika okwagala olulimi lwaffe n'eggwanga lyaffe lye tuvaamu ng'Abaganda, olulimi lujja kusigalawo. Naye bwe tunaagenda bwe tutyo nga bwe kaakati bwe tuli, olulimi lugenda. Kubanga generation eyaffe bwe inaggwawo Kassim, etuleseewo tejja kwogera Luganda. Kirizagana. That's why I said in 50 years bwe tunaaba tetwefuddeeko, Oluganda lujja kuba teruliimu. Ate nga abasinga obungi kye bakolerera kumalawo olulimi olwo. Naddala mu Uganda bangi balukolerera luggweewo, kuba balowooza nti Oluganda bwe lubeerawo buli kimu kyonna kiri, bwe luvaawo buli kimu kijja kutereera, buli ggwanga lijja kuba nga tubuze. Naye nga nze yegundi yange nsaba abali wano.
Sheikh Amregia, kati wabaddewo ababadde balese ekiteeso tukikoze tutya, kubanga mu maka tuyinza okuba nti tubadde week. Where you start from now might be a bit late. Where do we start? What can we do?
There's nothing. Kassim, nakugamba nze buli we tuba twogera nkugamba nti wali kintu kigamba nti kiri late.
It's late, yes.
Tekiriiyo. Nze si bwe nkirowooza. Kassim w'osalirawo gamba nti katandikwe okuyigiriza abaana bange olulimi. Keera ku makya, salaamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, wasuza otya, akutunuulire. Owulidde? Nze nagamba nti okuyigiriza omwana olulimi twatandikira ku kutuma. Genda ondeetera ekikopo. N'akubuuza ekikopo kye ki? What the kikopo? N'omusongera ku kyoyagala n'akireeta n'omugamba kino ky'ekikopo. N'agamba is a cup. N'omugamba yes is a cup. That is not my language. My language tukiyita kiki? Kikopo. N'akikwata nti ekyo kikopo. Ne bw'anaalagawa ajja kumanya. Oli bw'amugamba nti mpa ekikopo era tajja kuleeta sowaana, ajja kuleeta kikopo. Owulidde? Nze abaana mbazaalidde kuno era obamanyi Kassim. Abataagala kulwogera tebaagala kulwogera wa butaagala naye nga balukola ki? Baluwulira era balumanyi.
Barakallahu fikum. So the effort, I think, the simple conclusion that we take.
It is too late. There's no
now
late.
Saying whether we feel that it is too late, whether we can start.
No, it's not too late. W'okitandikira buli kintu w'okitandikira. Kankuwa ekyokulabirako ekisembayo nkuviire kuba oyagala kuggalawo. Nkuwa ekyokulabirako ekisembayo. Omusajja alina emyaka 75. Yasiramuka. Twalibadde tugamba it is too late to him to learn the deen. Naye now he's 85. He teach in university in Medina.
Wow. Yeah.
He get in Islam when he was between 70 and 75. The effort gye yateekamu muzungu wa wano naye asomesa ate ng'asomesa mu Luwarabu. Okitegeera? Kubanga yakola alina technology, yali ali mu Navy, nga yakola biology whatever ow'omu mazzi, kati byasomesa naye ng'ate abisomesa mu Luwarabu. Imagine, ate ng'obusiraamu bwabwaga. Kati kyenvudde nkugamba nti tewali kintu kibeera late.
Where there is a will, there is a way.
Yes.
Without a doubt. So thank you very much for coming. What are you you play clips before see today? The program is Kassim. Let's talk with Kassim Kayira. And we were live on 75 W Radio. We were live on Ummah Connect, on Facebook, on Zoom, and on YouTube. Very lovely conversation, but as usual, a lot to take away. I'm sure everyone goes back into their homes and decides which way they would like to take. Ibra, if we can have just those clips, please, playing back to back. Hello, Ibra, are you there? Okay, no problem. But Ibra, if you are there, just like to have those clips for those who ever missed it. But I think it's been a very, very fruitful conversation. Another one, a lot to take away. You take pride in some people who have, taken the efforts. And like N says, those are the basics I told you. Parents, you should start within your own homes. Chikopo, Sowani, Karamu, Lupapura, Bakuri. And these are the things that might actually get us to where we want to go. Thank you very much for making it tonight. It is exactly 3 minutes past 10 o'clock, and we can only call it a night. Thank you very much for being with us. Hope to see you next week, inshallah, where I'll be broadcasting live from Kampala. Bi'idhnillahi azza wa jalla. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you next week. Bi'idhnillah.